Ladies, gentlemen, Titans out there, can you believe we are only one episode away from Titans being over forever? We've just watched the penultimate episode of Titan Season 4, and as you can tell, especially with that ending, and Sebastian going into peak, ascended, brother blood mode, we really are entering the finale next week. So this episode had quite a lot of ramp up, obviously, into that finale. We also had the return of Curran Walters as Jason frickin' Todd, or Red Hood. This also gave Tim Drake a lot of development into his Robin mode. Everything was just, as I said, really ramping up. And what I want to know from you guys is, what are your predictions for the series finale of Titans coming out of the events of today's episode? So what we're going to do, as usual, is recap the events of what took place in episode 11, and then I'll give my thoughts in between, a bit of a consensus at the end. So go ahead and like this video, guys, if you've been enjoying the Titans content, and of course subscribe for more reviews like this, breakdowns on the channel, and news updates and all that kind of stuff. So right at the beginning, we have Starfire dreaming. It's like another vision, and this is what I meant in my trailer breakdown at the time. It looks like a Stargate portal. Any Stargate fans here? Do you guys know what could be going on with what is going down in these visions, that little kind of portal? It would be really interesting to know what you guys have to say about that. But she wakes up, and essentially they're scanning for Sebastian, because we can't forget, at the end of last week's episode, or just through the events of last week's episode, lots of people were having very, very bad medical side effects. For example, Bernard is literally in a coma. He's been having seizures. They want to find him as soon as possible, because the end of the world is nigh. We have Kory go outside and have a conversation with Dick, and there's still a lot of romantic vibes there. She talks about, if you could be anywhere else on Earth, where would you be? And Dick's just like, well, here's pretty nice. And then they lock eyes a little bit. She's like, yeah, here is pretty nice. So I'm sure Dickory fans are still very much so loving this. They're not like going full send into it. It's not like they're kissing each other's faces off, but obviously their feelings have most certainly been established, especially in the Cole's Folly episode. It's just, you know, they've got a lot of other things on their mind, but I do like the little subtle intricacies and signs of their feelings for each other. This is when, ladies and gentlemen, in Star Labs, we have Dick send Tim on a mission to Gotham, and he says that there's someone there who used to work for the organization who has information they need, Venter. But as we know, Dick's not really being fully transparent there. It's really all about a full-on introduction into Tim Drake becoming Robin. Tim is given a suitcase, the good old Robin suitcase, and within, of course, is Tim Drake's badass Robin suit. Now, I'm going to go to the next Robin scene and probably talk about the rest of it now, just to kind of keep it all cohesive as for his storyline with Red Hood this episode. So up next, we have a little play on the scene from Titan Season 1, Episode 1, as I'm sure many of you remember. It was quite a controversial scene, but this scene with Tim Drake is 100% a little tribute to that, because in that Titan Season 1, Episode 1 scene, we had Dick Grayson's Robin land on the top of the car. Tim comes down in this moment. It's like, evening, boys. He mentions to the thugs that Venter is a friend of Grayson's, and they're like, what, the Flying Graysons guy? So it's like, are they still like acknowledging that everyone knows that Dick Grayson is Nightwing? Which, to be fair, I guess they have set up in previous seasons, but it's still a little bit of a weird thing to digest. And don't get me started on how Dick should still be in prison, because he's literally escaped prison, but we're not going down that road. But this is when the fight between Tim's new Robin mode and the thugs begin. And I have to say, once again, that the suit looks really, really good. I know not everyone's on board with the suit. Obviously, everyone has different opinions there, but I really do think it looks really badass. I think it is my favorite Robin suit out of all the Titans Robins we've had so far, between that of Jason and Dick. But don't get me wrong, they're brilliant suits. But this one, I don't know, I just love the cape and how it's sliced up and down there. It's got all of these other little additions with color. Maybe some people don't like that so much, as I've already said, but I do gauge that the majority of people love this suit as well. And in this scene, the way it's lit with the rain rain, Tim using his bow staff in the fight. For me, it was really, really awesome to see. He manages to hold his own pretty well. I mean, don't get me wrong, he does, like, you know, run away and, you know, try and take cover from bullets, but the critical side of me still can't help but think about a few things. And this doesn't take away from my subjective enjoyment of the scene. You know, as I said, the Robin suit, the vigilante action in the rain, all badass. I still really enjoyed that. But the only thing I will say is, and I said this in my no spoilers review, I do feel like Tim Drake's Robin training has been very, very, very fast-tracked this season. And to be fair to them, they did have him in VR bow staff training from more or less the get-go, but I just feel like it doesn't feel believable enough that he can be sent out into, you know, the dangerous Gotham City alleyways to take on multiple thugs. And granted, he didn't absolutely slay all of them, but it just feels like a little bit too much too fast. I wish we had something like this with Karen Walters as Jason Todd mentoring him a little bit, or even just something before this on top of the VR training that made it believable that he wouldn't just get shanked in an alleyway. Again, I know he said some VR training with the bow staff, but when you're against multiple other men trying to kill you with guns and knives and whatnot, it just feels like they should have done something a little bit earlier rather than just right now. Despite the VR training, it feels like he's been thrown in the deep end a little bit. But this is when Red Hood arrives and he says, "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" And he's like, "I'm Robin." And it was fantastic seeing Karen Walters back as Jason Todd. So this is when they go to Jason's hideout, and it was just really cool to see his base of operations, even though he can't be a Titan anymore because of the things he did, even if it was under the influence of Scarecrow's anti-fear stuff. There's certain lines you cross that you can't come back from. They established that at the end of last season, but it's great to see that he's still crime fighting in Gotham City. We even find out that he works with Barbara, which is freaking awesome. Would have loved to have seen Barbara again, even if it was just a little cameo. But at the same time, I still really appreciate the name drop and the fact that it shows that Red Hood isn't just purely working by himself. Like, Barbara still seems to be supporting Jason after all, like, the trauma he went through last season. Even if he got himself into quite a bit of it, he's still basically in Red Hood and the Outlaws mode. Like, he's a vigilante. For all we know, he has a bit of contact with Batman. I don't know, but he's not fully accepted. It's very kind of reminiscent of the comics. Now, obviously in the comics, Red Hood does eventually get let back into the Bat family, but I do still see this more or less in that direction. This isn't too long after the events of Season 3, don't forget. When Episode 1 of Season 4 picks up, it's only been a few days to a week. So you can only imagine where Jason is at right now, this new status quo we see him in. He's more or less in good spirits. He's doing the right thing. He's still operating as a vigilante in Red Hood mode. You can easily see, as the more time that goes by, that he's going to be let more back into the fold, potentially. I do like the larger vision of world building here, even if it's just through little things like him working with Barbara Gordon. And in this instance, he's working on a case of Shimmer, who's been pulling off heists all around Gotham. Tim helps out in the very detective Tim Drake mode. We also get some Tim Drake versus Jason Todd Robin training. I absolutely love how Tim Drake got wrecked straight away. Nothing against Tim Drake, but it just shows you the proficiency of Jason Todd, for example. And I actually think this kind of goes to show even more what I was saying earlier with how Tim's got a long way to go before really, you know, being thrown into the deep end here. But, you know, to be fair, Jason had been doing it for a lot longer. Eventually, this led to a scene where we had Tim all suited up and a bunch of thugs from Shimmer's gang jumped him, and he manages to take them all out. And it was awesome seeing him overcome them. And I like the lesson that Jason provided here. You learn by doing, not by being coddled, because he basically revealed to Tim that he let Shimmer's gang triangulate his location to actually set this moment up. And overall, it just reminds you, seeing all of these scenes in the episode, how good Karen Walters is in Jason Todd's role. I know some people may have issues with the previous seasons of Titans and their writing, but I've always absolutely loved Corin Walters in the role of Jason Todd. I think, especially where he's at right now, it kind of leaves you with wanting to see a bit more of the Red Hood and the Outlaws-esque mode that he's in. And I know they're acting, but I feel like you could tell that Corin Walters had a blast coming back to film this episode of season 4. And ultimately, this is when this little side plot ended this episode. Tim says goodbye to Red Hood, and Jason even gives him a motorbike to ride back to Metropolis. As it closes off, we also see that Dick Grayson has rung Jason up asking how it went. I hope he didn't go too easy on him. And it just leaves off in, it was truly a passing down of the Robin mantle. So I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this. I know that most people were aware that Corin Walters was coming back as Jason Todd this season. I hope people's expectations weren't too high in terms of thinking that it would bleed out from this episode into the next episode as well. I think for what it was, they facilitated it very nicely. So as for the rest of the episode, let's talk about Sebastian. So meanwhile with him, he's listening to the news talking about, fans asking why his game is shut down. And this is when Superboy appears. Sebastian is immediately like, your friends destroyed my game and took my powers. And, I still feel this episode, they haven't made the whole power thing mega clear, the whole cutting off the link to Raven, and what I was saying last episode, if you watched my review to that point. Superboy did say in this moment, though, they didn't take your powers, it was your mother. Retribution for Sebastian refusing to call Trigon. But my whole thing is that he actually did lose his powers after the link to Raven was cut off. And I know some people were saying, but to be fair, Raven has that gem there, right? Which, boosted up her powers at the beginning of season 2. But the thing is, even before she got that gem from Trigon, in season 1, she still had her demonic powers. So I just feel like Sebastian, even without Mother Mayhem, this, that, and the other, without even the link to Raven, he should have some baseline powers, especially as a son of Trigon, very similar to the daughter of Trigon, right? Even before she got the gem. And not only that, this guy has walked into the blood pit. He ascended. So I still feel like, I don't know if they explain so well why his powers are properly missing here. And the only times he seems to get it back is when he actually is given something or he takes something from someone. But anyway, talking about Mother Mayhem, this is when we visit her in the temple. She talks about how the Titans have actually been useful in destroying Sebastian's game because, as we know, that's not really the approach she wanted. She wants Brother Blood to sound the horn, which is when we have Sebastian's ex come in, and she asks if she's ready to serve him. She talks about having pure devotion to Sebastian, and she says she's always known Sebastian's been special, so I'm willing to do anything and everything. And she rips out her heart. Literally rips it out, kind of crumbles and dissolves it, and like a mini kind of chakra-esque gem appears. And I suppose it's a way, as we find out later, to kind of give Sebastian the taste of what he's missing. Again, it's like Sebastian has to be given something rather than having any kind of inherent trigonic heritage powers like Raven does. And speaking of that, the next time we see Mother Mayhem is when she creeps up on Sebastian, and I like how he kind of acted like a little scared child of their mum. She's like, oh goddamn, you're back? She says she didn't take his powers. His powers are his if he uses them wisely. Once again, she tries to win him over because at this point, I get what they're doing. Sebastian had a taste for it. He's lost it, and she's capitalizing on that, saying, if you bring back your father, you'll get everything you ever wanted. And so she gives him the little red gem, and he kind of absorbs it. So clearly, May Bennett is trying to still win Sebastian over by giving him more tastes of power, and just imagine how powerful you'd be if Trigon came back. But I do think it's Sebastian, even though this isn't remotely where it ends up and he does see the other side of things, from this moment onwards, he is kind of won over again. He's being fooled into believing his mother and that he isn't a tool, but Superboy wasn't exactly gonna let May Bennett's influence take hold for that much longer. So in that next scene where we see Superboy and Sebastian and how he realizes that his game isn't the answer anymore, but family is, Connor is very insistent that May is still lying to him, which is when, in order for Connor to prove that, he brings in May Bennett's top Church of Blood follower. And this is where things get a little bit messed up in terms of what Connor is willing to do, because he starts interrogating the guy, and this even makes Sebastian feel a bit uncomfortable, which I wasn't so sure about, because if he was willing to drain people's life force all across the world, even children signing up to that app. Connor, like, punching this guy shouldn't really faze him, if you get where I'm coming from there. But I suppose you could argue now he's not drunk with all of that power and his power connection has been cut, so to speak. Maybe he's come down a little bit more balanced and we're seeing the old Sebastian crack through just a little bit. But the question that is being asked during this interrogation, of course, is what happens to Sebastian when Trigon comes to Earth? And the guy says, you will be nothing. Just like the rest of you, you will be reduced to ash as Trigon cleanses the Earth of all filth unfit to share in his glory. Clearly, this really triggers Sebastian up until the point as well of where he actually kind of chokes up the little power totem, if you will, that May Bennett gave to him in the scenes prior. So I don't know if I'm being stupid here, but I'm still just truly kind of wondering what that was about. You know, was it just supposed to be a taste of power? And through taking that from her, it gave her a bit of influence over him, which is why he was saying to Sebastian just a couple of moments prior that, no, I realize it is about family now. And then when realizing the truth, he spat up kind of, or choked up the gift that she gave to him. I suppose it's meant to symbolize that, but did that little red power totem or chakra gem that he just choked up not give him any powers? Or was it just simply like a seed of her influence that is now symbolically rejected after learning the truth of her true intentions from her top follower? So this is when Superboy comes up with an idea, because he didn't want Sebastian to kill the guy straight away, saying that the follower's death could be more useful to them in another way. And that other way is the blood running through that guy's veins is infused with Mother Mayhem's magic, and they can transfer that power to Sebastian. And this is also what I meant by the messed up aspects to this with regards to what Connor is willing to do. Even if it is a bad guy, he's still clearly so desperate for Mother Mayhem to be gone, so he goes forward with facilitating this next moment for Sebastian. And that is, for Sebastian, I'm sure a lot of, you know, Originals fans loved this. He went full on Klaus Michelson mode, and he starts drinking the follower's blood to get the power from Mother Mayhem. But I think my favorite part of this scene is, as we had Sebastian go into Klaus mode, we had Connor walk away to the window, and you just see his face full of conflict, like a wave of emotions. Like he's like, did I just do that? You know, it's actually really breaking him down. And I have to give full props to Joshua Orp in there. I think his performance was spectacular in this episode in of itself, and there's another scene later on which I thought was great. But even these like 3 to 5 seconds just showing that range of how Connor is feeling internally, no lines, just acting, was fantastic. Back with the Titans, they realize that Kory has gone missing. And when we finally see where Kory went to, it was to none other than Mercy Graves' hideout. So she wants to find out, obviously, where Connor is, and Mercy claims that Connor has switched sides. But I was thinking, you know, the Titans seemed fairly convinced and were apprehensive that, you know, with what we learn in a few minutes' time, that he has the location to the little power grenade that they used later on, and maybe he could destroy it. But I was thinking, he did help you last episode, so are you really so sus about him? But I do suppose that with everything else and the lack of communication they've had with him, they don't quite know who he aligns with right now. So this is when the Titans arrive, and Dick confronts Kory about them doing this together, but she's very adamant that they can't. She's seen it in her dreams that clearly she's got a large role to play in this, that is just all by herself. But this is when Gar recovers some files, and we got a few Easter eggs in this moment with regards to Lex's weapon development division. For example, we got some teasers of kryptonite ballistics, even creating kryptonite crystals, the X virus, I believe even Lex's mech suit, but most importantly, Project Starfire. Gar says that this weapon is designed to replicate Starfire's blue light, and Mercy Graves reveals that Lex knew that Starfire had the power to stop Brother Blood, and so he wanted that power for himself and attempted to replicate it, and he has a lab where he conducted the testing. But another thing that's interesting to consider here is that Gar is in the same room with Mercy Graves, and we can't forget what she put him through during season 2. So I do feel like maybe, just maybe, there was an opportunity for him to confront her a little bit more, but maybe they wanted to go down the route of him just kind of rising above that, being the bigger person, and if anything, perhaps just not giving her the satisfaction, so he was being a bit sarcastic to her. But as we head towards the end of the episode now, this is when they head to the lab and they come across Superboy, and he immediately says that he's on their side, and I thought that this scene was fantastic, and this was the other scene I was talking about just a minute ago where I feel like Joshua Alpin gave a fantastic performance. He explains that he thought he could do it himself, and I've gone over already the motivations of what sent Connor down the Luthor path. I don't want to repeat it so much, but he has tried the Connor Kent way in the first few episodes. He got his ass handed to him. He felt very vulnerable. Lex died. He never really got the opportunity to know his dad. He even says that he wanted to prove himself to Lex, Superman, and when he said to you as well, and that meaning Dick Grayson, that one hit me. Like, of course, you know, you want to prove yourself to Lex, you want to prove yourself to Superman, but you also want to prove yourself to kind of the family leader, Dick Grayson. And I always do feel like Connor and Dick have had a great dynamic throughout the seasons. They've always had these scenes. I know some people may have wanted Kory involved because she was hanging back in this scene, and this was more just directed at Dick and Connor. But I do somewhat understand why they did it, because they've had quite this synergy between them both over the past couple of seasons. Connor goes on to say that he did things that Titans don't do, and Dick says, people like us, we're close to the darkness, we seek it out. Sometimes it has its way, and this is fair enough. Many heroes, they're not perfect, they are flawed. Even some of your favorite heroes like Batman, to whomever, they go through these struggles. They sometimes wrestle with their darkness. So Connor going on this arc this season, I've always felt like it was a very organic one, and he still found this equilibrium up until this point. And considering where we're at now, it's great to have him back on board. So this is when they go into the little freaking Halo sticky grenade orb room, and they start charging it. I mean, before that, we got some information with how it's essentially like a nuclear grenade. It's a very risky process, and we found out it got risky. So as soon as they started charging it, there was all of this pressure. The more the device got charged, the more the instability grew. The nuclear containment shield activation starts. Kory wants to keep going as they're not quite 100% yet. She's very adamant because she's the one who's been having freaking dreams about all of this. But Dick, being Dick, obviously doesn't want to lose any of his family members, especially freaking Starfire, so he cuts the power. And the orb got charged right up into 98.6%. And was it enough? Well, you guys have seen the episode. No. And so at this point, it is Superboy's responsibility to get the orb and frickin' sticky grenade it to Sebastian, as there's a meeting at the temple very soon. He races off there. Meanwhile, we have Sebastian arrive at the temple. May is like, yay, today is the day. Let's call Trigon. We must move quickly. The Titans and the Tamaranian will never stop. And this is when Sebastian's like, neither will I. And he steps out the way, and Connor is right behind him. Now, as soon as May Bennett saw Connor there, she sends a blast of energy out, but Sebastian, having a bit of, I guess, the blood that was infused with May Bennett's magic, deflects that and redirects it back to Mother Mayhem, and he talks about taking what is his, and this is when he kills Mother Mayhem by stabbing her with the Horn of Trigon. Now, I'm guessing she dies this time because either that first time she got burned, that was her last spell that resurrected her, so she doesn't have another one in place, or it's just the fact that through the way she died this time with the fact that it was Trigon's horn, that is like a sure-about way of actually killing someone. Equivalent to like a wooden stake, killing a vampire for good, because if you think you've killed them before that, nope, they'll come back unless you use the wooden stake. So this is Mother Mayhem's wooden stake, the Horn of Trigon. And so, as Mother Mayhem dies, this is when Sebastian absorbs all of her power. Meanwhile, we have Connor just taking all this in. It's like, yeah, screw you. Just loving seeing Mother Mayhem finally go down, which is when Connor gets his sticky grenade out, says, hi, catch this. Sebastian gets pulled up into this little blue bubble shield. It kind of implodes and he just, falls to the ground. Connor thinks that he's dead, starts walking away, and then we have Sebastian somehow quickly getting dressed behind the scenes and then rise up into, as I keep saying, peak ascended Brother Blood mode. And we finally get the suit. Now, I'm not trying to put a downer on this. I just would have liked to have seen this suit a lot earlier because, you know, we're right at the end of episode 11 now, the penultimate episode. So you only really get to see it here and in the finale. And it's such a cool looking suit, and seeing Sebastian in this full Brother Blood mode is awesome, and it gets awesome next episode as well, the more freaking powerful he gets. This is when Brother Blood says, "My turn," and he completely blasts Connor back into the wall with a magical beam. And as we know, Kryptonians are very, very, very vulnerable to magic. And if I was to nitpick, you know, I could say that Connor could have dodged that with his super speed, you know, kind of apple paused in the air mode like last episode, but you know, we're just gonna go along with it. He got blasted by it. Meanwhile, the Titans realized that the orb wasn't strong enough, and then the camera pans to Connor, who is just lying there, lifeless, eyes open, seemingly dead on the floor. Now, this is when the world is basically ending. Very fitting considering it's the penultimate episode. You have to kind of throw everything to crap before the Titans can try and save the day. So Brother Blood sounds the horn of Trigon, which, as we know, is literally all about bringing Trigon to Earth. So he's on his way. We get the epic score sounding. I love that, by the way. I've always loved it ever since we had Sebastian coming out of the blood pit. But when we had like Trigon on his way here, the sky's turning cataclysmic, and we had the almost Brother Blood, Church of Blood theme playing. It was really, really awesome. And essentially, the world is ending, baby, so best get prepared. And Kory says there's only one way to end this: my way. So once again, adhering to the prophecy that we've had all season long, Kory kind of knows that, hey, I've been saying the whole time, I've got to do this. So, oh, lo and behold, I've got to do this my way. And so the episode ends there. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this episode. You know, I've got some things that I said about Tim Drake's journey a while. I found it very enjoyable. You know, I had some things that I would have wanted maybe a little bit earlier on. But overall, like the ramp up as a penultimate episode, I felt like it served everything it needed to do to kind of put the Titans in one of the worst positions they've ever been in, to serve it up on a platter for that series finale. Brother Blood is in the most threatening and powerful position he's ever been in. We finally got him in the suit. It was so cool seeing him levitate that way, and it gets even cooler from here on out. I know a lot of you have seen footage from the trailers that probably give away a little bit too much. And so now we're at a point where Brother Blood is in his most powerful form. Trigon is literally on his way. Literally, he's on the train. He's about to come into the station in just a couple of minutes' time. Just you wait. And somehow the Titans are going to have to try and stop, you know, Brother Blood, Trigon on his way, the world ending. Kory's got something up her sleeve, but obviously the Titans don't necessarily want her to go down that path. So what do you guys think about all of this? Do you have any theories going into the next episode? Because on top of all of this resolution that needs to take place in terms of stopping the end of the world, don't forget it's also going to leave off this series in terms of the Titans family. Like, we're also going to have the ending of the ending address all of that as well. Do you guys, I mean, obviously you hope for a really good send-off, but how do you think things are going to end with each and every individual Titans character saying goodbye to the series forever? Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Theories, as I've already said, ideas. I've already seen the finale, so that's why I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say. How do you think this episode went? Would you have changed anything? What was your favorite moment? I read every single comment, so I can't wait to see what you guys have to say. If you got to this part in the video and you're still watching right now, I would really appreciate your time and just hitting that like button. If you're brand new here, maybe subscribe. But until next week, guys, until that finale, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you fellow Titans in the next video. Goodbye.